Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about how you were the supervisor on a task force that was able to solve the Kevin Burrell, Jim McDonald homicide? Can you tell me how that played out and how that happened?
Okay. Naturally, we all was taken aback when that incident occurred. I think it was 91 or 92, 2000, where Kevin was working that night. He was one of our regular patrol officers. Kevin Burrell was a gentle giant, one of these big guys, played basketball and every bit of about 6'5", 6'6", 200 pounds. Good kid. And he was working with a reserve police officer that night. And he and his partner, James, that was his last night. His last name was McDonald, James McDonald. It was his last night as working as a Compton Police Reserve, and that was a Friday night. He was due to report to San Jose PD as a regular police officer that Monday. He wanted to ride with Kevin, who technically was on the desk that particular night because he had a bad wheel, But he wanted to ride so badly with Kevin, one more ride, that the watch commander, Danny Sneed, allowed Kevin to go work the last night. I guess Danny probably had his finger crossed and hoped they didn't get into anything, because of his limitations, Burrell's. And unfortunately, they ended up making a traffic stop at Rosecrans and Dwight on a kid from Nicholson Garden named Regis Thomas. And they pulled a traffic stop in the rain just to check the kid out because I guess he was speeding or something. But Regis was armed, had a gun on him, and probably some dope, no doubt. I think it was some dope in the truck, no doubt. When they pulled him over, Kevin approached Regis, got him, put him up against his truck to start searching him and stuff. And James, stayed in his position on the other side watching him. And I guess when Kevin went to, not guess, but the evidence kind of showed that when Kevin went to reach to check the front of Regis for a weapon, Regis pulled the weapon and ended up pushing Kevin back, which with that bad will, Kevin kind of fell back and Regis started shooting Kevin. James, on the other end, I think fired a shot at Regis from across. Kevin falls down and Regis goes around the truck and go right at James and shoot James. He falls to the ground and then Regis goes right up to James on the ground and just shoots him point blank, gets in his truck, a red truck, and takes off. Now this was 10:30 or something that night in the rain, hardly no traffic going down Rosecrans, just a few people. And thank God, one of the people that passed was one of our records clerks that at least saw the stop and saw Kevin trying to search this guy. But she kept on, not knowing that they were going to get shot. She continued. And so that's how we had a witness to the shooting and stuff. But that turned out to be a real hectic night. But we ended up started looking all over everywhere for this red truck, identified as the one was stopped, trying to get information. We kind of surmised that night that the shooter was probably from the Nicholson Garden area, but we never found a red truck that night. So naturally, we comprised a task force that involved local municipalities, LA County sheriffs, LAPD. Everybody became part of this task force. And I was kind of the lead street investigator, but we had LA County sheriff detectives from Homicide Unit, my friend Bumcroft, and the sergeant, and they more or less coordinated the sheriff's end of it, Compton PD end of it. LAPD was part of it as well, and we went back and forth for weeks and months. Solved a lot of other cases, looking for leads or get people involved to give us some leads to it. But we found a guy who was related. No, his cousin was related to the shooter, Regis. And apparently he had gotten rid of Calvin Cooksey. He had gotten rid of the gun that was used. month later, and he got caught in a crime in Hollywood, and naturally he wanted to turn off the information to get himself off of that, and he did. We recovered the gun, did that investigation, subsequently got Regis Thomas convicted, who's on death row till today regarding that shooting. But it took us almost a couple of months before all that was worked up in order to arrest the guy involved. And he was, like I said, from Bounty Hunter, but he wasn't a gangbanger, Regis Thomas. That was kind of that is investigation.
Can you tell me about if you have any memorable stories from when the LA riots were happening?
All right. On the night of the 92 riots or insurrection or whatever they wanted to call it, I was coming home from the Laker game and stuff, and noticed in South LA, around Manchester area and stuff, they were burning stores and doing some looting. I didn't know what that was about until I turned on a news station and found out that people were revolting because of the acquittal of the officers that was involved in the Rodney King incident, got acquitted that evening. And I guess as part of them guys rebelling and stuff, they pulled that gentleman out of his tractor trailer around Broadway in Manchester, Reginald Denny. They had kind of beat him up and stuff, and one thing led to another, and you start having all these incidents. It subsequently continued all through the night, and then when I got to Compton area, they started the rioting and looting and stuff in the Compton area. And that type of stuff lasted for about 2 days or so or longer before we got control of it. Because I remember we, meaning the city of Compton, had control of the hotel right there on the Ramada. It was the Ramada Inn, I think, at that time, the big hotel right by the 91 freeway. And so we made that a command post and brought in the National Guard and other agencies, and that was really a crazy time doing that. But eventually that was resolved after a few days or so.